So as Adam Block says in a lot of his videos, you have to earn the image that you're trying to process. And this image here of the Boogeyman, Nebula, and Barnard's Loop and everything, I simply just did not earn it. I did not put enough integration time in it to get the image that I wanted to get, but it's still a beautiful wide field shot and it is salvageable. There's things that we can do. Now, I might not be able to get a full color image out of it, but I'm sure we can do something in false color that will look halfway decent. So I'm Chad. This is the Easy Astro Images channel, and we're going to play with some photons here. So we're going to try to do one of these quick processing videos that everybody likes where we can just throw something out there and see what our data actually looks like. Now, the reason why I'm choosing this image, like I said, is I've tried to play with this image quite a bit and nothing is just working out on it. So I'm also doing this little zooming thing here on OBS, which hopefully helps you guys see things a little bit better. So that way, you know, when I'm watching videos and sometimes I can't see what the person is doing, like when they're using Photoshop or something like that, this will help out, hopefully. So we're just using Graxpert right off the bat to just correct the background on this image. And I'm going to give a shout out to my 6 channel members. If you guys like what we're doing here and my honesty of showing you the good with the bad, link in the description below if you want to go ahead and support the channel. So we've done our background extraction. So everything is looking good there. I think the next thing that I want to do is let's go ahead and let's color calibrate this thing. So typically, I would go ahead and do something like linear fit, but I know this image is already kind of gross and nasty. So we're going to do SETI Astro's find my background in this image. And what it's going to hopefully do is find us a good spot in the background that is not in the Boogeyman Nebula, even though it likes to pick that area. Of course, you asshole. Oh well, we'll just go ahead and leave it there. It's all good. So the reason why I want that is we're going to run the spectrophotometric color calibration process on this thing, which is fine for this purpose. And let's go ahead and select that by clicking on region of interest, and we will select that preview. And then we'll go up here and select our 571 sensor. And then this was shot with ITIS NBZ filters. So we're going to go ahead and fill all of that stuff in, and we'll go ahead and apply that to the image. All right, that's all done. Let's reset the stretch here, and let's turn on the screen transfer function, and let's link that, and let's stretch it out and see what we got. So we've got rid of a lot of that false color and all that kind of stuff that's going on in there. It's all good. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to run Blur Exterminator with correct only, just to kind of clean up any optical issues that we might have had with the Red Cat 51 and the 2600 MC Pro one-shot color camera that we took this with. All right, that's looking good. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to run Blur Exterminator on the default settings, and we'll go ahead and close that up. So let's go ahead and delete that preview that was on there, and let's make a clone of this image. So I've played with this image enough, and you might find this in yourself, is that when you try to stretch these stars independently and everything, that I noticed that I get a lot of weird artifacting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stretch this image using the screen transfer function. But the first thing I'm going to do is run Noise Exterminator on this, and we'll go ahead and click the color separation intensity checkbox, and we will raise this up to 1, and we will leave our denoise intensity where it is at 0.9, and we'll go ahead and denoise this image with the stars, and then we will stretch and pull our stars out. All right, that is a beautiful denoised image. Now we can go ahead and let's just apply this screen stretch. So we're going to open up the histogram transformation, and we are going to go ahead and reset the screen stretch and stretch that again. And we'll go ahead and just drag this down to here, and we will apply that screen stretch to this image. And we'll go ahead and cancel and kill that. And now if we take a look, you can see that we've got a stretched image with our stars. And now let's go ahead and pull the stars out of here. Let's make sure that we have the full AI. So we're using the full version of 11. And since we stretched this data, we are going to want to click on the Unscreen Stars tab. Generate the image and use large overlap. It uses a little bit more processing power, but that is okay. While we're here, if you don't want to use the image blend type of script, what you can do is you can go ahead and click on this little box here for unscreened stars. And if you see right here below that, there is the formula right down there for pixel math in order to add your stars back properly using a one-step process. All you need to do is have an image named starless and an image named stars. So here are our stars looking all good. So we can go ahead and let's just go ahead and take some of the green out of the stars real quick with the SCNR tool, and then we are good. So let's go ahead and put our stars down here. And here is our overall image that we just did. Not too bad. We'll go ahead and get rid of that because we want to actually work on this image over here. So let's go ahead and remove the stars from this. We don't need a star image this time or anything else. All right, there we go. Now let's go ahead and get rid of that. And now it's kind of up to you what you want to do from here. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and use SETI Astro's statistical stretch on this image, because like I said, no matter what I try to do, it's just going to be kind of rough. And we're just going to leave it at default and hit execute. And then we can make a mask and we can work on it in curves and all that stuff if we want to. So there is our basic stretch. Let's go ahead and run Noise Exterminator on this, and we will click on the color box and we will tell it that we want it to get rid of all of the color noise. And there we go. We got a beautifully denoised image. Now at this point, what you could do is you could decide if you wanted to play around with this or if you wanted to go into the false palette. I've really struggled with getting an image out of this. We can try it one more time and not push the data as hard as we did before. So, you know, what we got to do is we need to definitely bring this background down a little bit, and we need to raise everything else up at the same time, and we can't push it too far. So that's probably going to be a little bit too far right off the bat. Let's take a look and see what we got. Not too bad. So let's go into SCNR and let's get rid of the green and see what that looks like. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's actually turning out okay. Now, a lot of people won't like this kind of stuff right here. You could use something like SETI Astro's Blemish Blaster to get rid of that type of stuff. But I think that I am just going to leave it in there. So let's try to just get this color image going here, because this does not look too bad to me. So I'm going to go to Process, All Processes, and Range Selection. And I want to try to just do a range mask just to try to sharpen up the details in some of the areas. And like, let's try to just kind of calm the background down a little bit. So let's just do something like this right here and smooth that out a little bit. And we'll go ahead and say that that is okay. Let's apply that over here and see what we got. We can see that it's, you know, going to give us that right there. And let's go into the Curves Transformation tool and bring up the real-time preview. And now let's just try to lift and get some contrast going on. So see, it just kind of just starts blowing itself apart as soon as you try to do anything with it. It's very unfortunate. So we're going to give it just a little bit of a push. And we're going to give it just a little bit of saturation. And we're going to stop that. This is definitely a gentle touch. Now with the mask, we're going to invert the mask and we're going to go back into the curves transformation tool. And we're going to try to take a little bit of saturation out of the background. And then let's see if we can just pull down everything else back there. Try to create a little bit more contrast. So you got to be real careful with the whole contrast adjustment because it's really blurring the edges. You can see where if we just had more integration time up in here, we would have way less of a defined edge as far as what's going on between the background and everything else. So let's go ahead and apply that. Now I wonder if we just do a little bit of histogram transformation, if we can try to recover any of this. So let's just try to pull all of this a little bit more. Just pull out a little bit more of that background and blend those edges a little bit. We might have to end up with a background that's a little bit brighter than we typically would want, but there's just so much going on in this image. I think that it's going to let us get away with a little bit of overstretching. I mean, it's not too bad. Look, there's just some spots in it that are really, really weird that we could probably crop some stuff out, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, again, this is just kind of a demo of you just don't get everything that you want every time. And again, as I said before, that is okay. So if I could kind of clean this area up here, I would be a lot happier. So I wonder what would happen if we just try to run Blur Exterminator on that again to see if it will give us some poor man sharpening. All right, let's zoom in here and see if we made things worse or better. So it definitely gave us a little bit more detail and everything. So I am going to leave that for now. I feel like these areas could use a little bit more color in them, but I need it to be more defined. So let's make another range mask and let's try to see if we can be a little bit more targeted with everything. So let's just keep raising this up a little bit. Let's really blur it this time. And we will apply this to the image as a mask. Okay, and now let's go into curves transformation. If I could really get that point to just like pop for us, like I would be really happy. So I think we actually need to just kind of tone it down a little bit like that. That actually looks a little bit better, just kind of toning it down a little bit. Maybe we can add some color in there. That's not too bad. Yeah, see, it just looks horrible. Like, I just cannot get things to work right with this image. Now, if you go into processes and we go to narrowband normalization and let's just go into like an HOO image. Now, you can see that like we can totally get a way more acceptable image that we can play with by using a false color palette. Like we've already kind of like processed it again to try to get the colors out of it for the 80th freaking time, and it totally didn't work. But, you know, it just is what it is. So let's just go ahead and do the old image blending script here by going to Utilities and Image Blend. And let's go ahead and select our main image and let's select our stars. And maybe when we put the stars back in, it'll kind of hide all the nastiness back there. Well, not really. It doesn't look that good, but we're just going to hit execute on it anyway. because this is kind of one of those images I think I just want to forget that I ever messed with. I mean, it's not a horrible image, but, you know, it definitely is difficult. And the main difficulty is we just don't have enough time and data on it. And now we could take this into Photoshop, we could take it into Infinity Photo, and we could definitely play around with it a little bit more and probably like fine tune this a little bit. And we could crop in on the edges here and kind of clean this edge up here and everything, and we would probably get a better looking image. But again, it kind of comes down to what Adam Block says, is that if you really want that good image, you just got to earn it. And in this case, we didn't earn it. And we could try all the different sky story techniques of cultivating data and trying to like make something out of nothing. But quite honestly, I just think we need to move on to something else. But I wanted to show this to you guys as an example of every image that you take, no matter how good or how bad it may or may not turn out, it's always a learning experience. And now we have data that, who knows, in another year or two, there could be some amazing process that comes along that could just totally salvage this thing. There could be an answer out there right now. Who knows? I will link the data below in the Google Drive, so that way if you guys want to have a play with it, you can have at it. So until then, I'm Chad. Thanks to all of you guys. Peace.